Maybe once in a decade, a car comes along that changes everything. What you're looking at is one of those cars. On a level never before seen, the C8 Z06 makes you question why a Lamborghini or Ferrari warrants over double the cost. It may be tough to admit, but this Corvette sounds as good as the exotics and is faster than quite a few. Through engineering excellence and a decade of development, GM has thrown down the gauntlet and completely re-leveled the playing field. We're going to take a deep dive into what this groundbreaking machine is capable of and why it has changed the automotive game as we know it. It's no secret that the Z06 earns most of its attention from the LT6 engine that is now the highest powered naturally aspirated production V8 of all time. What's less known is that the development and research of the LT6 concept started a full decade ago. Upon the debut of the LT1 in the C8 Corvette, engineers began toying with the idea of a flat plane crankshaft. This change would result in far more responsiveness and an 8,600 RPM redline, roughly 2,000 RPM above the previous LT engines. Now this crankshaft change does sacrifice torque, especially in the low end, and because of this, the Z06 doesn't pull with the same characteristic as the old LS engines that boasted a super flat torque curve. However, what we get instead is something far more exciting. It's a 670 horsepower, high RPM, screaming rage that will literally leave you with a slight headache. That scream is one of a supercar thanks to that new engine, rather than the typical American crossplane sound. Here's a comparison with the ZL1's crossplane LT4 to demonstrate this effect. These hand-built engines, visible through the coupe's glass window, have an engraved plaque of who built your engine. The attention to detail on the Z06 is present at a level I've really never seen from GM, and it really does make the car feel special. Mated to that glorious engine is a Tremec dual-clutch transmission, the same design from the C8 Stingray. The final drive is slightly shorter, but much of the same compliments I had for the Stingray apply here. As controversial as the elimination of a manual was for this generation, this DCT is about as good as they come, nearly as fast as a Porsche PDK. The paddle shifters, now carbon fiber in the Z06, have excellent response time, giving you confidence that you're in full control. This entire unit enables a 0 to 60 time of 2.6 seconds, putting the Z06 in the company of million-dollar cars. However, one of the two largest complaints with this car exists here. The DCT has 8 gears. 1st through 4th are short for acceleration, while 5th through 8th are very tall for top speed and fuel economy while highway cruising. Having just 7th and 8th gear for this purpose would have sufficed, yet 5th and 6th gear are still very tall. The result of this is that the Z06 does fall flat after topping out 4th gear with weaker top-end acceleration. Now on the street, if you enjoy not living in a jail cell, this should never be an issue. Conversely though, in a track setting where the Z06 is most at home, it's believed that this seriously hindered the Nürburgring lap time of a 7:10. The shifting is perfect, but the gear ratios do leave small room for improvement. The change present in the Z06 that most catches your eye though is what they've done with the exterior. Everything is wider, and this helps the car tremendously from both a visual and stability standpoint. The rear end of the C8 Stingray can appear a little bit squared off, while the Z06's wider fenders give the body more shape and stance. These fenders are needed to house ultra-wide rims that come with an unbelievable 345 width rear tire. In my personal opinion, the rim options on the Z06 are also more interesting than that of the Stingray, with the rim face having some more concavity. This particular car is a 3LZ trim with the Z07 performance package, so it is fully loaded. With this Z07 package are extra sticky Michelin Cup 2R tires and stiffer tuning for the magnetic ride control system. Like the Stingray, the Z06 still features multiple driving modes where the steering, exhaust, and suspension adapt to the desired condition. Tour mode is comfortable enough to take this car on a road trip, as the dampers soften with their variable control system. Yet with the flick of a knob into track mode, every vibration can be felt and the nose of the car becomes incredibly sharp. On all Z06 models, the wishbone vent behind the door is present as a distinguishing feature of the higher trim, and massive heat exchangers can be seen within them. Every vent on the entire car is functional, leading to either cooling system components or sending air straight to the brakes through ductwork in the body. Another feature of the Z07 package is the carbon Aero that comes with it. You can get the carbon exposed for an additional cost or have it finished in black like this model here. The massive wing helps generate downforce for rear end stability and makes the car look much wilder from a distance. In the front, huge canards and a factory splitter balance out the downforce production and further contribute to the more racy look of the Z06. Another notable difference for the Z06 is the quad round tip center exit exhaust, the conventional layout for Corvettes in the past, rather than the split square tip exhaust you'll find on the standard C8. And on the Z06, this exhaust is extra special, as it's actually designed to reverberate the sound back into the cabin, giving you the full auditory experience of what that flat plane engine has to offer. I'll do it justice by allowing you to hear a cold start, followed by an idle and some revs. Another cool feature of this car, and all C8s, is that when you pull both paddle shifters in at once, it allows you to rev the engine regardless of if you are driving or at a standstill, letting you hear the entire thing scream. Inside of the cabin, things aren't super different from the base C8. You do get a carbon fiber wheel and paddles with a Z06 logo on the bottom, which is certainly a well appreciated touch. On each door sill is another Z06 badge that you see anytime that you enter or exit the car. There are a ton of options available when it comes to the seat type and color scheme, and this two-tone red with Alcantara is the perfect choice on this car. Color match stitching runs throughout the entire cabin, and these GT2 bucket seats also get carbon fiber backing that's visible just below the headrest. Just about everything else is the same, which is by no means a bad thing. This is easily Corvette's best ever interior. It's comfortable, yet the seats hold you in well, and the GT3 bucket seats are available for even more security within the seat at the cost of comfort. The floor-mounted gas pedal makes fine adjustment of throttle input easy, and the infotainment and cluster systems are well thought out and up to date. I'm still not a massive fan of all the controls being in a straight line down the center console, but you do get used to that pretty quickly. The C8 is also one of the only cars to ever include both a trunk and a frunk. In the wide trunk, you can fit up to 2 golf bags, while the frunk is much deeper for those grocery runs. On the whole, the Z06 is a truly wicked looking car, with a high quality and well laid out interior and more storage space than any other car at this performance level. The last major topic I want to cover is the general driving dynamics of the Z06, from the suspension and steering to the overall driving experience. In all types of corners, the Z06 rotates amazingly well thanks to advanced suspension geometry. The double wishbone setup works in such a way that when you turn into a corner and the outer rear wheel compresses, the suspension adds toe out, while the inner wheel is given toe in when decompressed on turn-in. Because of this trick in the suspension geometry, the rear end has very subtle rear steering, helping the car rotate quickly despite the large engine mass that's nearly over the rear axle. As touched on earlier, the magnetic ride control system in the dampers makes track use a breeze, where the stiffness of the car gives the driver a ton of confidence to carry high entry speeds into turns. With the Z07 package, you get a stiffer suspension setup known as the FE7 rather than the FE6. While this may slightly compromise ride quality, the Tour Mode tuning still does a good job of making the car livable. From what I experienced behind the wheel, there are very few stock cars at this price point that feel as planted in a corner as the Z06. The closest competitor in terms of cornering would be the 991.2 Carrera S that I had the chance to review. It's amazing to be able to say that when the attention on this car has mainly been about straight line performance. Also in the Z07 package are the Brembo carbon ceramic brakes. All Z06 models get Brembo brakes, but the carbon ceramic rotors are unique to the Z07. My impression here was surprising, as the brakes seemed to be rather weak initially, and it really did catch me off guard. However, once you do get them up to operating temperature, they bite like a proper race car. That is the double-edged sword of carbon ceramics, offering fantastic performance but only once they're up to operating temperature. My only knock on the Z06, other than the tall 5th and 6th gear, would be the steering. You can tell that it's electronically assisted and almost no feedback gets through. It can feel very dead at times, especially mid-corner, and the dead zone in the middle is rather large. I suspect that they likely do this to keep the wheel from constantly pulling all over, as these super wide tires hit grooves in the road and get pulled back and forth. However, it's nowhere near the older hydraulic steering systems. Overall, from the driver's seat, I couldn't help but giggle like a child the entire time. The sounds that this car make are addictive, and when you put your foot down, it blows you away. It really is undisputedly a supercar. Performance of this level and the high-speed cornering stability with the massive Aero just doesn't exist anywhere else under 200 grand. And while this fully loaded Z06 came out at $145,000, you can grab one for well less. If you're thinking about getting a Z06, just test drive one, and I'll bet anything that you won't be able to help yourself from leaving there with it. Gone are the days of having to spend the price of a house to get supercar performance. You no longer need to buy a Ferrari or a McLaren, because the Z06 just undercut them all. For a third of the price, you can have the performance, the looks, a jaw-dropping interior, and more storage than anything else in this class. To top it all off, your maintenance bills won't be half the value of the car. When the C8 was launched, it was met with extreme skepticism about going mid-engine, and GM told us to just wait and see. The Z06 is the proof of why they were right, and this engine is arguably the best that I've ever had the wonderful opportunity to experience. By any metric of what makes a sports car worth the money, the Z06 destroys the competition. At this price, this is the car to buy, and it really is that simple. The supercar manufacturers have no choice here but to say well done to GM with this one, and the Z06 has left me in awe at the miraculous engineering work behind it. Decades from now, the C8 Z06 will surely be one of the most memorable. This has been a car review with Running to Redline. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out my other car reviews for more options. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.